Hello, I'm James Cridland, the radio futurologist, and this is Radioland, my weekly radio trends newsletter. It's obviously just had a week off for Christmas, and normally I'd wait until next week to send out the first Radioland of the year, but there's already too much news, so here we are, and Happy New Year to you. This is Radiocentre's last year and closures as we move into 2026, and this podcast is sponsored by RSS.com. Now, I've long been impressed at Radiocentre in the UK. It's a vibrant trade body for the radio industry, which is probably a good reason why UK radio is so well thought of and so successful. And they've just published their annual Review 2025, which is only 2 pages, but there's a lot there. If you're not in the UK, can you say that your own trade organisation has done as much as Radiocentre has in the past year? Now, here's a new radio station in Montgomery in Alabama.
Turn your radios up.
What if your radio station actually listened to what you play? The new Streams 100.5 is powered by what you stream. Every song, every week.
Hey, yo, it's your boy Chris.
Hey guys, it's your Big Barney.
We track millions of local streams right here in Montgomery and turn your choices into the city's unique playlist. You pick the hits. We put them on the air.
Hey, what's up? This is SZA.
What up? This is Drake.
Streams 100.5, powered by what you play.
Well, it's an interesting idea. It's choosing its entire playlist based on music streaming stats for the city. The station says it's a first ever. It's using a service called Stream Stats from Bridge Ratings. And if the data is filtered for the age group that this station is aiming for, then it sounds like an interesting way to produce a music policy. Although, if it just offers the same music you can get on your streaming device, but with horrible ads and no way to skip the bad songs, then I kind of wonder why you'd want to tune in. Christian O'Connell's new national breakfast show here in Australia starts on Sydney's Gold 101.7 later this month, but he did a week in Sydney, just for Sydney, before Christmas. A bit of a baptism of fire, given his week was directly after the atrocity in Bondi Beach, but Christian is a professional broadcaster who knew how to pitch things.
So I'm aware that some of you might be tuning in right now going, who is this? Please tell me the radio's broken. It's not an English guy, is it? It's the last thing we need this week. It's an uninvited Englishman suddenly on the radio. I'm Christian O'Connell, and we are the show that is going to be replacing Jonesy and Amanda. And the good news for you guys is you're going to have 2 great shows come January on this radio station. We're going to be waking you up, and then Jonesy and Amanda are going to be taking you home. This is going to be some radio station for Australia.
Now, the whole thing is going to be available as a podcast, and you'll recall that Smartmaster Kyle didn't even bother going to Melbourne before his launch, so already Christian seems to be doing things well. Now, clearly, ARN is missing a trick by not putting this show onto 97.3 in Brisbane. It will, though, be on DAB+, which a third of Australians use every week in the cap cities. Gold would be a clear market leader, given an FM frequency, but instead ARN is using KISS 97.3 to compete against 2 other top 40 format stations on FM, leaving the only oldies FM outlet to the tired, sports-infused dad rock Triple M, and nothing else grown up for anyone over the age of 35. Gold 97.3 is the obvious choice, and as a Christmas present, ARN, I've bought gold973.com.au for you. It's all safe and sound for when you launch. Just ask gold973.com.au, which weirdly already works. In Canada, Numeris published some listening trends for Q3 25. There's more listening to radio at home, and Edison Research has actually said something similar about at-home audio listening in the US as well. Average weekly hours per listener is also listed in the data. Most markets are up. Radio streaming accounts for between 12 and 16% of total radio audience through the workday. Here we are in 2025, and live radio is hitting a peak of just 16% of total radio listening online. Does Radio Player Canada or iHeartRadio Canada or any of those apps only get 16% of all mentions on air? I bet it doesn't. I was interested to be interviewed on ABC Radio Brisbane and ABC Radio Perth about AM's future, and the ABC Radio Perth switching to FM. You can listen and watch to those. You'll find a link in the newsletter version of this podcast. Also, Spotify has added a playlist mix feature, which I've tried, and it's fatally flawed, rather unfortunately. Otherwise, it would be pretty good, but you can't quite use it if you just want to make some nice mixtapes, which is a bit of a shame. Now, goodness, there's been a lot of closures over the last couple of weeks. For a start, MTV closed down all of its music channels. Its last song, Video Killed the Radio Star, of course, Karma. The BBC interviewed Ray Cokes from MTV Europe. He used to get 2,500 letters every day, he said. It's quite a good interview. You should go and take a peek at that. One of the things that he says was kind of the death knell of MTV was when it stopped being MTV Europe and it started having UK versions and versions for Germany and versions for France. And he said the community, which had grown up of people feeling very European and feeling very much as if they were in touch with everything, all of that community just went away. And I think that that's an interesting story about radio, perhaps, as well. Now, while the last 10 minutes of Absolute Radio on 12:15 was spent with a beautifully crafted piece of audio, the last song played on MTV's music channel just faded away, and it was replaced with a rotating logo with some scrolling text, the first part of which said, default text. Yes, if MTV meant anything to you, it clearly didn't mean anything to its final owners. In Ireland, RTE Plus, RTE 2XM, RTE Junior and RTE Radio 1 Extra all closed. I linked to closing audio from 2XM. They played Joy Division's Transmission, and RTE Pulse, which played Ultra Cynic's Nothing Is Forever. Nice choices. Also closing audio from Radio 1 Extra, which was very weird. It just ended with a back announce of a just finished show by a continuity announcer. You've just been listening to Democracy Now! And then a few seconds of some rubbish jazz, followed by a little Barker channel saying the station is no longer broadcasting. What a graceless finish that was. The stations were additional services for DAB, but RTE closed its DAB services in 2021, and those services have only been online and via TV since. Notably, though, RTE Gold is continuing. I linked to a lovely last column from Perry Michael Simon, who's an excellent writer about radio who'll be missed. He says he'll happily be bought lunch by anybody in South Florida. I don't know him well enough to ask, and when I'll be in Florida in a week or so, he'll still be more than 2 hours drive away. But I hope he enjoys not having to write The Thing every week. He's one of those that really cares about the industry, and I wish him a long and happy retirement. Now, more AM switch-off news. In Colombia, Sports Talk National Format Antenna 2 went off air on December the 31st. Its owner, RCN Radio, is also switching many of its other AM services to FM, or switching AM frequencies for Alerta, which is its local network, and La FM, which is national talk. Earlier in the year, it made a significant reorganisation of its stations, removing many local brands. It's been going since 1949, RCN Radio. It's a commercial broadcaster. It's owned by a company that also owns soft drinks, textiles, a football team, car dealers, and farming equipment. In Thailand, 1,993 community FM frequencies were placed up for auction. The government raised just over $2 million from that auction, with 2,237 companies participating. The most expensive license in the country was 94.5 in Chiang Mai, which went for $44,500 for a 5-year license. In Pattaya, the English language Fabulous 103 FM were only allowed to bid for 2 frequencies. As Tommy D explains,
over the past few years, the broadcasting authorities have been looking at ways to change FM radio licensing. A few months ago, they finally came up with a new system, a kind of virtual lottery, officially described as an auction. That process immediately reduced the number of FM frequencies by about 1/3. In simple terms, it became a game of musical chess, where it was guaranteed that roughly 1/3 of all stations would disappear. To make matters worse, the list of frequencies up for auction didn't include the one we've been using for decades, and we weren't alone. Many stations across the country found themselves in the same position. In our case, we were only allowed to bid on 2 frequencies within the province. That was it. No choice beyond that.
Yes, and neither of those were 103, which was a bit of a shame. Now, one of those licenses went for $25,000 to another bidder. The station says, as you've just heard, that the process has made a third of all stations disappear, and from the 1st of January, Fabulous 103 FM is now called Fabulous Radio, and it's been online only. And unconnected, I think, in Bangkok, Tero Radio has closed after 35 years, according to an announcement on its website, which partially reads, "Due to shifting trends in media consumption, we have faced significant challenges that have made it impossible for us to continue." They ran 4 stations, including Virgin Hits, more recently just Hits. I visited their studios in 2010, and you'll find a blog all about that linked from the newsletter. The Thai radio industry is predicted to drop from $76 million in ad revenue to $73 million in 2026, but it's also a very difficult market to operate in. FM signals are owned by the government, and when I visited in 2010, the operators of the stations had to pause every hour for state news. Elsewhere, I also personally blogged about getting Linux to work on an old MacBook, or not, a review of the electric car I've been driving over the last year, and a review of an email forwarding solution, because of course I have. Where am I speaking next? I'm speaking in 3 places. Podfest in Orlando, in Florida, in just a couple of weeks' time. One of my talks is going to be where we've been and where we've been, where we're going. A look back at where we've come from, including last year's podcast news and trends, to help us understand how podcasting is changing and how we should be changing with it. It should be fun. If you can be there, then that would be fantastic. I'm also taking part in the new media show that week, live from stage. The other people will be talking about crappy TV, and I will be the only person saying, but audio. Also, Radio Days Europe in Riga in Latvia. The future of audio is people-powered. I'll be talking a lot about where radio is going and what we shouldn't forget. Why the future is bright as long as we understand why our audience comes to us in the first place. Very much looking forward to doing that. The flights are all booked, you'll be glad to know. So that's a good thing. And my first time in Riga in Latvia, and that should be fun. And also I will be speaking at the podcast show in London in May the 20th to the 21st. That is a great event if you have any interest in podcasting. And frankly, even if you don't, you should still turn up. It's relatively cheap to go. Well worth taking a peek. Podcastshowlondon.com is, I think, where you go to find tickets and stuff. And if you read Pod News, you'll find some money off in there as well. And thank you to Great Dane for 10 coffees. 10 coffees. He or she says, good to see someone covering the subject I love. We can't put James on the cover of the Rolling Stone, but we can do better than Dr. Hook did by buying 5 copies for their mothers. I've bought 10 for James. They write, I don't know anything about who Great Dane is. I would quite like to. Buy Me a Coffee isn't telling me. So thank you, and do get in touch, because it would be nice to say thank you personally. Also, thank you to Bennett Cobb, who contacted me with a lot of information about the US's National Public Warning System, which covers 90% of the US population, which assumes, of course, that the US population own AM radio receivers, which I'm not so sure. Anyway, I plan to write a little bit more about that shortly. And thank you also to the many supporters of this newsletter, including admaster.info, cloud-powered traffic and billing tools for you, Brun Audio Consulting as well, Media Results Inc., and Radio King, among others, and Wade Kingsley, who is limbering up to be a competitor of mine by the looks of things. Well, there you go. So thank you to them. Thank you to Greg Strassel, Sam Phelps, Richard Hilton, Emma Gibbs, Jocelyn Abbey and James Masterton as well for being regular supporters. If you would like to support my work in any way, buy me a coffee. That would be lovely. At buymeacoffee.com/James Cridland. It's easy for me to say. Buymeacoffee.com/James Cridland. You'll find links in the newsletter as well. If you'd like to follow me on the socials, then you'll find me on Threads, Blue Blue Sky and on Mastodon as james@bne.social. And my website has more details about who I am and what I do and whether I can help you further. You will find that website at james.cridland.net or indeed radioland.email. I know. And until next time, keep listening.